Your sister just bought a luxury apartment. That's what my mom proudly announced at our family meeting, her eyes gleaming with a mix of awe and competitive triumph as she looked directly at me. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating, punctuated only by the clinking of cutlery as everyone else pretended not to be utterly fixated on my reaction. But before I could even formulate a polite, if strained, congratulations, my mom continued, her voice dripping with an insinuation that was anything but subtle. And imagine, she did it all by herself. Some people just work harder, you know. She smiled, a saccharine smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, and then, as if it were a casual afterthought, added, "It's a 2-bedroom, darling, just perfect for her and, well, her lifestyle." The subtext hung in the air like a noxious fume. Why haven't you achieved this, my name? Why aren't you as successful as your perfect sister? My dad shifted uncomfortably in his seat. My sister, Sarah, was beaming, basking in the spotlight, occasionally glancing at me with a smirk she couldn't quite hide. It felt like a public execution, carefully orchestrated, and I was the condemned. All I could think was, you have no idea, do you? None of you have any idea what it took for her to get that apartment, or rather, what it cost me. So I took a deep breath, straightened my spine, and looked directly at my mother, then at Sarah. "Oh, she bought a luxury apartment," I said, my voice calm, almost too calm. "That's wonderful. I mean, it is technically my luxury apartment, but it's wonderful that she's finally moved in." The color drained from my mother's face. Sarah's triumphant smile crumbled. The room plunged into a silence so profound you could hear the blood rushing in your ears.
"Was I wrong for what I did? Tell me honestly, would you have done the same thing?"
Let me take you back to the beginning, to a time when I still believed in family loyalty and the genuine warmth of a shared home. I grew up with Sarah, my older sister by 3 years, and our dynamic was, to put it mildly, complicated. Sarah was always the golden child, the effortlessly brilliant, charismatic one. She excelled in school, effortlessly making friends, dazzling teachers, and effortlessly charming every adult she met. I, on the other hand, was the quiet, studious one, the diligent worker who had to fight for every good grade, every accomplishment. My parents, particularly my mother, never openly played favorites, but the unspoken preference for Sarah was a constant, suffocating presence. Her achievements were celebrated with fanfare. Mine were met with a casual nod and a quick, "That's nice, dear." This subtle favoritism festered, creating a quiet rivalry that permeated our relationship. I loved Sarah, I truly did, but there was always this undercurrent of resentment, a feeling of being perpetually overshadowed. Fast forward to our adult lives, Sarah, true to form, landed a high-lying job right out of college. She was always traveling, always busy, always posting glamorous photos on social media. I, after years of hard work and sacrificing my social life, had finally secured a stable, well-paying job in a different field. I was proud of my independence, proud of the life I was slowly building for myself. My biggest dream, one I had nurtured since childhood, was to own my own apartment. Not just any apartment, but a specific one in a beautiful building with a view of the city, a place I had walked past countless times, dreaming of the day I could call it home. I saved meticulously, denied myself luxuries, and put every spare penny into that dream fund. It was a slow, arduous process, but I was determined. One day Sarah called me, her voice uncharacteristically subdued. She was in trouble, big trouble. She had made a series of bad investments, racked up a mountain of credit card debt, and, to top it all off, had been laid off from her job. She was facing eviction from her rental apartment and was on the verge of bankruptcy. She sounded desperate, truly broken, a side of Sarah I had never seen before. She needed a significant amount of money, more than I could possibly lend her. My heart ached for her. Despite our complicated history, she was my sister, and seeing her in such distress was painful. She eventually confessed her true predicament. She needed a co-signer for a substantial loan to consolidate her debts and keep her head above water.
Her credit was shot, and no bank would touch her. She begged me, pleading with tears in her eyes, promising she would pay me back every single penny, every single cent of interest. She swore on our family, on her future, that she would be responsible. I was hesitant, incredibly so. My dream apartment fund was substantial, but a co-signed loan of that magnitude would put my own financial stability at risk, let alone my ability to buy my apartment anytime soon. I told her as much, explaining how close I was to achieving my own dream. Sarah's response was a fresh wave of tears and a performance worthy of an Oscar. She said I was her only hope, that if I didn't help her, she would lose everything, her career, her reputation, maybe even her will to live. She painted a grim picture of homelessness and despair, making me feel like the cruelest sister in the world for even considering my own financial security over her impending ruin. She even brought up our childhood, reminding me of all the times she had protected me from bullies, a highly embellished version of events. If I'm being honest, but I was vulnerable. She promised that as soon as she got back on her feet, which she guaranteed would be within a year, she would repay every cent, plus a generous interest for my trouble. She even offered to put it in writing, though she then immediately dismissed the idea as insulting to our sisterly bond. I wavered for weeks. I consulted with a financial advisor who strongly advised against it, warning me of the immense risks. But Sarah was relentless. She called me every day, sometimes multiple times, her voice cracking with desperation, her pleas growing more and more fervent. She involved our parents subtly, of course. My mom started making comments like, "Family helps family, darling, and it's important to be there for your loved ones, especially when they're down." It wasn't direct pressure, but the implication was clear. If I didn't help Sarah, I would be seen as selfish and unloving. The guilt was suffocating. I kept envisioning Sarah on the streets, her life ruined, and it gnawed at me. My dream apartment felt selfish in comparison to her immediate survival. So, against my better judgment, against the advice of professionals, and against the little voice inside me screaming, "Don't do it," I relented. I agreed to co-sign the loan. The amount was astronomical, enough to buy not just my dream apartment, but probably a small house in a decent neighborhood. The terms were brutal, with high interest rates due to Sarah's poor credit history, but I signed, believing I was doing the right thing, believing in my sister's promises. The relief on Sarah's face was immediate and profound. She hugged me tightly, tears streaming down her face, thanking me profusely, promising me that I had saved her life and that she would never forget it. I left the bank that day with a heavy heart, my dream apartment pushed far, far into the distant future, but with a flicker of hope that I had done a good deed. The first few months were fine. Sarah got a new, albeit lower, paying job, and she made her loan payments, albeit sporadically. I had to remind her a few times, gently at first, then more firmly, but she always paid eventually. Then the payments started becoming more and more erratic. Excuses piled up. My check was delayed. I had an unexpected expense. "I'm just a little short this month. Can you cover it, and I'll pay you back next week?" Next week never came. Soon I was covering more than half the payments, dipping into my own savings, the savings that were meant for my apartment. I confronted her countless times. She would apologize profusely, cry, promise to do better, and then the cycle would repeat. She started avoiding my calls, ignoring my texts. Our parents, when I cautiously mentioned it, dismissed my concerns. "Oh, Sarah's just a little overwhelmed, dear. My mom would say, she'll get back on track. You know how she is." I felt utterly alone, trapped in a financial nightmare of my sister's making. Then came the real kicker. I received a series of alarming notices from the bank. Sarah had completely stopped making payments. The loan was in default. Because I was the co-signer, the bank was now coming after me for the full amount, plus all the accumulated interest and penalties. My credit score, which I had meticulously built over years, plummeted. My carefully constructed financial stability crumbled.
I was facing financial ruin, all because I had tried to help my sister. I called Sarah, furious, heartbroken, desperate. She finally picked up, her voice surprisingly calm. "Oh, that," she said, almost dismissively. "Yeah, I decided I just couldn't deal with it anymore. It was too much stress." I was speechless. Too much stress? What about my stress? What about my life being destroyed? But what about your promises? What about our deal? What about me? I pleaded, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. "Look, I'm sorry," she said, with absolutely no genuine remorse in her tone. "It just wasn't working out. You'll figure it out. You always do. You're so good with money, you know." And then she hung up. She actually hung up on me. My own sister, who I had pulled from the brink of financial disaster, had just coldly condemned me to it. I was beyond devastated. I was furious. I was betrayed. My dream apartment, the one I had worked so hard for, was now not just a distant dream, but an impossible fantasy. I was staring down a mountain of debt that wasn't even mine, a debt that would take me years, maybe even decades, to pay off. I felt like a fool, an absolute, naive fool. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. I was drowning, financially and emotionally, while Sarah seemed to have moved on without a care in the world. I still had the heavy burden of the co-signed loan, a debt that was now entirely mine to repay. My parents, completely unaware of the extent of Sarah's betrayal and my subsequent financial ruin, continued to treat her like the golden child. They believed her flimsy excuses, if they even asked for any. They saw her struggling and me stable, completely missing the fact that my stability was a mirage, propped up by my own desperate efforts to stay afloat after her callous abandonment. I had exhausted every avenue of appeal with Sarah, every plea, every angry confrontation. She had simply blocked me, ghosted me, disappearing from my life as if I were a bad debt collector. I was left with nothing but the crushing weight of her irresponsibility and the bitter taste of betrayal. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. What would you do when your own sister destroys your financial future and then gloats about her own success, built on your suffering? I spent weeks in a fog of despair and resentment. I considered legal action, but the cost and the emotional toll of suing my own sister, even one who had wronged me so profoundly, seemed too much to bear. I kept thinking about my dream apartment, the one with the city view. It had become a symbol of everything I had lost, everything Sarah had stolen from me. I had driven by the building countless times since the betrayal, a lump forming in my throat each time. Then an idea, a tiny flicker of hope, sparked in my mind. It was audacious, risky, and perhaps a little petty, but it was all I had. I started researching the loan documents, the co-signing agreement, every single piece of paperwork I had with the bank and with Sarah. My financial advisor, the one who had warned me against co-signing, became my unlikely confidant. He was sympathetic to my plight and, after reviewing everything, helped me understand a crucial detail. The loan was in asterisk, both asterisk our names, making us asterisk jointly and severally liable asterisk. This meant the bank could pursue either of us for the full amount. But it also meant that, legally, the assets acquired with that loan, if they could be directly traced, could be considered joint property. I knew Sarah hadn't been working long enough at her new, lower, paying job to afford a luxury apartment on her own. It simply didn't add up. She had been drowning in debt, and suddenly she was a homeowner. The math didn't lie. I suspected she had used my asterisk co-signed loan, the one I was now solely repaying, to finance her new lavish lifestyle. It was a long shot, but I had nothing left to lose. I started digging. I pulled public records which in our city provided some details about property transactions. It was a needle in a haystack, but I was desperate, and then I found it. A new apartment had been purchased in Sarah's name, with a mortgage that perfectly matched the amount of the loan I had signed, and was now paying off. And the address, it was that asterisk building, my dream building, the luxury apartment building with the city view. My blood ran cold. She hadn't just used my money. She had used my money to buy my asterisk dream. The rage was incandescent. It burned through my despair, replacing it with a cold, calculated determination. I didn't want revenge, I wanted justice. I wanted what was rightfully mine. I consulted with a real estate lawyer, presenting him with all the evidence, the co-signing agreement, the loan default notices, the public records of Sarah's apartment purchase, and the clear timeline of events. He looked at me, his expression grim. "It's a strong case," he said, "but it will be a fight, a very public, very ugly fight." I didn't care. I was ready. I instructed him to send a demand letter to Sarah, outlining my intent to claim a proportional ownership of the apartment based on my contribution to the mortgage and the original loan. I didn't ask for the entire apartment, just an equitable share, enough to compensate me for the financial ruin she had inflicted upon me. The lawyer advised me to be prepared for her to fight back, to deny everything. I was. What I wasn't prepared for was her complete silence. She ignored the demand letter, just as she had ignored my calls and texts. My parents, still oblivious, continued to parrot stories of Sarah's newfound success and hard work. This went on for a few weeks, the tension building, my anger simmering beneath a calm exterior. I continued to make the exorbitant monthly payments on the loan, each payment a bitter pill to swallow, knowing it was contributing to Sarah's luxurious new life. Then came the family meeting, my dad's birthday dinner, a seemingly innocent gathering, but I knew, deep down, it would be another opportunity for my mom to laud Sarah and subtly diminish me. I walked in, mentally prepared, a silent warrior bracing for battle. And then my mom's words, "Your sister just bought a luxury apartment," followed by her snide remark about some people just working harder, hit me like a physical blow. The years of resentment, the recent betrayal, the financial devastation, it all coalesced into a burning desire for the truth to be revealed. I couldn't sit there and let her gloat, let her take credit for something that had cost me everything. The words tumbled out before I could even fully process them, driven by a primal urge to expose the deception. "Oh, she bought a luxury apartment," I said, my voice eerily calm. "That's wonderful. I mean, it is technically my luxury apartment, but it's wonderful that she's finally moved in." The immediate aftermath was chaos. My mother gasped, a hand flying to her mouth. Sarah's face, initially beaming, contorted into a mask of pure fury. My dad, bless his oblivious heart, looked utterly bewildered. "What are you talking about, dear?" he stammered. "What I'm talking about, Dad," I said, looking him directly in the eyes, "is the fact that Sarah used the loan I co-signed, the one I am now solely responsible for, to buy her luxury apartment, the very loan she defaulted on, leaving me to pick up the pieces, and the one that has utterly destroyed my credit and my financial future." Sarah, recovering from her initial shock, exploded. "You manipulative liar! How dare you? You're just jealous. This is all mine. I worked for this," she shrieked, her voice echoing in the stunned silence of the dining room. "Worked for it?" I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "You worked for it by begging me to sign a loan you had no intention of repaying. You worked for it by driving me into financial ruin. You worked for it by stealing my dream and then rubbing it in my face." My mother, finally finding her voice, started yelling at me, calling me cruel, ungrateful, and a host of other unflattering names. She was furious not because Sarah had wronged me, but because I had dared to expose her golden child's deceit in public. My dad, looking utterly lost, tried to mediate, but the dam had broken. I pulled out my phone and displayed screenshots of the bank statements showing my payments, the demand letter from my lawyer, and the public records of Sarah's apartment purchase. I laid out the facts calmly, methodically, despite the storm raging around me. "This isn't about jealousy, Mom," I said, my voice rising with emotion. This is about justice. This is about the fact that I am paying for an apartment that Sarah is living in, an apartment that she bought with money I am now solely responsible for, and I will not stand for it.